Hello, Dimitri.
Hello, Dan.
Hey.
Hello. Welcome to yet another episode of CTO Talks. My name is Dmitry Stepanov, and I'm a co-founder and CTO Glorium Technologies, international technology company hosting this event. And this is a video podcast for technical leaders and for those who want to become them sometime. We have guests and who possess special experience, special knowledge in the area of technology. And tonight, the guest is Daniel Peters. Daniel is fractional Chief Technology Officer and Chief Information Technology Officer. And as you might, guess, based on his position, we're gonna talk about fractional CTO, what it actually means, the differences, and all the related topics. So, Daniel, hi again, and we are ready to roll. So before we jump to our questions, can you just introduce yourself to the audience? Just couple key information points about yourself.
Thank you, Dimitri, and welcome everyone. So yes, as Dimitri said, my name is Daniel Peters. I'm a fractional Chief Technology Officer. I have a very long career in information technology. I've been doing it for over 30 years. And I've worked for a variety of companies in my career, including in Silicon Valley, and more currently in Midtown Manhattan, working for mostly financial services companies and law firms. And for the last year, I've been working as a fractional Chief Technology Officer in a self-employed capacity.
Okay, good. So let's jump to the questions. And actually, the first question we wanted to discuss is basically what's the difference between virtual Chief Technology Officer and fractional Chief Technology Officer. And I guess even for myself, it was, different roles. Sometimes different companies, they treat themselves or interpret themselves differently. So Dan, can you just give a couple words, I guess, to definitions, what virtual Chief Technology Officer means and what fractional Chief Technology Officer, so at least people would understand what we are comparing here with what.
Absolutely. The other question I get often is, what's the difference between a Chief Technology Officer and a Chief Information Officer? And the answer is, for most companies, nothing at all. They fill the exact same role. For a very large company, or for companies that have specific information requirements that go beyond technology, for example, a hospital, then they can be very different roles. But for the companies that I work with, small and mid-sized companies, there's almost always no difference at all. And I also hear sometimes, what's a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer, and how is that different? Yet again, for most small and mid-sized companies, the same individual will serve all three roles.
Well, I guess in small companies, a lot of people, they perform different roles. Very flexible, so it makes sense. Yeah,
Right,
I agree with you.
So a virtual CTO or a virtual CIO typically works for an IT services company, and they typically don't. There's typically not a fee for their service beyond the fee that the company that a client would pay to have the IT services company provide them with service. A VCIO, it will typically work to help the company use the IT services products to develop their strategy and to have good information technology infrastructure. A fractional CTO is different. A fractional CTO will work for a specific client for on a part-time basis, perhaps one day a week, perhaps one day a month. Will actually be a member of that client's team, that client's executive team, and will represent their interests completely as a member of their team, including managing the IT services companies and all of the other vendors.
I either, I guess, drifted off or I didn't catch. So what's the specific difference between fractional and virtual CTO? So what's the essence of difference?
A virtual CTO is essentially there to promote the MSPs or the IT services companies' products and
Mhm.
to work to essentially do an account management role for that company. A fractional CTO will get involved in the client's business processes, will actually work to help them implement the line of business applications that they need to
Mhm.
have to run their business, and will negotiate on the client's behalf with their different vendors to perform all the needs of their IT that their IT requires.
I see. Okay. Well, I guess, I mean, the next question would be, well, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but I guess we still need to kind of touch this question. When do you think company would need fractional CTO? And it's not just from the technical standpoint. I guess it's about, what is it, development life cycle stage specifically, because, I mean, as we discussed at the beginning, when the company is mature at an enterprise level, I mean, people want to have their own CTO, their own CIO. But before they can grow to this size, it's different story, right?
Good question. Companies that can really use a fractional CTO are companies
Mhm.
that have specific technology needs that require more than what a VCIO can offer. That is to say, they need someone to help them build the technology around their business processes to support their sales processes or their manufacturing processes or their
Mhm.
financial processes. The VCIO is not going to be able to get that involved in how their businesses work. Um, so for those types of companies, and I'm thinking primarily about small manufacturers or companies that have services that they themselves will provide. Um, they'll need somebody who can come in and really provide them with that high level CTO service, but they may not have the budget or just the need to have somebody on board full time.
Gotcha. Any specific use cases you want to share? Just kind of getting into the details.
So absolutely. I mean, a couple of use cases that jump to mind. A small manufacturer who's manufacturing ERP
Mhm.
never really managed their manufacturing processes. It was never really implemented completely, and there's nobody there who is really in a great position to do the technical work required to make that happen. Needs help. Um,
Mhm.
the MSP, the IT services company, wants nothing to do with that kind of work, and it can be hard for them to find consultants who are familiar with the software to walk in and really understand their business and what needs to be done.
Okay.
That's a good use case for a fractional CTO. Um, or a company that a real estate management company that needs to implement a, uh, 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 a real estate management system to manage all of their rental properties. Again, there's all they do is real estate management. They don't know the technology side of it. They need somebody who's going to be there for the long term.
Mhm.
That's a good use case for a fractional CTO.
So when you say that long term, in your experience, those fractional CTO, how long do they perform their duties for the small and maybe for average? Just out of curiosity, I guess here.
Depending on the
No.
growth of the company, but easily for 2 or 3 years, or for less if the company manages to sort of grow out of them. Um,
Mhm.
I think I feel that most people that I know who do the fractional role, myself included, aren't necessarily. It's not that's our chosen field, and so we're not necessarily interested in trying to make that into a full-time role. So
Uh-huh.
by the time the company grows to a position where they can look for a full-time person, we're more than happy to help them find
I see.
find that
Okay.
person.
Um, well, well, I mean, we did talk kind of touched manufacturing processes, establishing processes, software, and everything else. But from the technology standpoint, can you give some kind of, I don't know, examples, use cases, what you are meeting, what you're experiencing in the field, what kind of technology as there from your standpoint and from your experience? Kind of, I guess it's a broad question, but just give your
Sure.
high-level description anyway.
Sure. My use case for technology is everybody. So anybody who is using a server realizes that servers are dead. Any server that exists, whether it be on a physical server on site or even a Windows server, running in some infrastructure as a service platform, is likely going to need to be replaced. Everybody is looking at a SaaS software as a service platform for whatever application they need to be running. That's the state of the art, and that's what people are looking for.
Okay.
Doing that migration, sometimes an IT services company can do that migration. Sometimes they need someone who can step in and help them work that out. Every company has been thinking about cybersecurity for years. Everyone is still thinking about cybersecurity. Sometimes the IT services company can provide them with all the cybersecurity they need. Sometimes they feel they need a little more. That's a good example to bring in a fractional CTO to help with that. Every company is looking for help and advice on their work from home capabilities and their work from home requirements. So again, there's a good example that I'm seeing of when I'm coming in to talk to companies who are looking for a fractional CTO to help them with all those details, especially as it relates to data privacy and cybersecurity.
True, very touchy point. Okay, and I mean, well, you kind of, I guess, also established already frameworks for the results for the fractional CTO specifically, but what exactly, well, CTO, fractional CTO in both cases here, actually, what the company expectations from them, from the results standpoint? What's the goal? What's the KPI? I don't know. What's something, if you bring CTO, what do you think, like specific items I will get if I will bring fractional CTO in my company? So what's going to be helpful specifically?
So my experience, the fractional CTOs are typically brought in by either the company's owners, CEO, or somebody at a pretty high level with the company. They're brought in to report generally to that person. The individual who's bringing in the fractional CTO will oftentimes feel like the technology problems are falling on their lap, and this is causing them to get tied up in the details of working in the business instead of looking for the opportunities to grow the business and to make it a better and more complete and profitable company. So a fractional CTO will typically enter into a business like that and have to sort through the problems that are happening, find the real roadblocks, work out the issues that the company's facing, both operationally and also from a technology perspective. That oftentimes requires replacing some of the service providers, or some of the or repurposing some of the other people involved in the IT processes. But the main goal for a company bringing in a fractional CTO is typically to let the executive team work on growing the business instead of fighting fires. And the fractional CTO needs to be able to work at a level to come in and be able to truly take ownership of those problems and to make sure that those are no longer issues that the company is that's holding the company back from their other goals.
Let me paraphrase with my understanding and I guess my experience. Well, CTO, it's not just, as you said, protect executive staff from fires, but making sure that those fires will not be flamed again or started again. So creating some infrastructure that problems will not happen in the first place. Don't we work on the strategic goals, right?
That's right. It's very typical for a company like a manufacturer who's trying to implement an ERP, whatever it may be. There are many out there. Some are very large and some are smaller, or a company trying to implement any sort of service kind of system to automate their kind of service operations. Um, Many vendors will say this is turnkey, or they'll give a flat fee and say for this amount, for $50,000 a year, we'll take care of everything, and they will to a point, but there still needs to be a person at the company who can work with that vendor to map the company's business processes to what the software can do. And that can be a process that can take months or of work to do. And someone needs to be able to devote the time to it. So this is a good opportunity for a fractional CTO. Well, but the fractional CTO shouldn't primarily be project based. That is to say, even though the size of the engagement may become larger or smaller depending on the what the company's going through at that time. When the project's over, the fractional CTO will still be around. I mean, and around either working on other things or just around simply continuing to provide that company with good strategic advice as they go about their business and waiting for the next big project to come up.
Gotcha. Okay. And we're actually getting to the next question. So, I mean, CTO can provide so many stuff, so many services, so many improvements, but before we bring CTO on the board, what should we look at specifically? Like any specific, I don't know, character, technical, personal, soft, what we're looking for?
As a company, I would look for a good match for someone who has experience in the type of industry that a company's in and the size of the company. So that'd be my kind of the first thing that I would look for. I feel that most professional services companies, firms, most financial services firms, most law firms, most marketing firms can probably rely on somebody who's worked in the other business to help them, but there are some businesses that are completely different, and it's going to require a different person. For example, education, government, hospitals, if local governments, those people are going to be looking for if they're looking for a fractional CTO, they're going to be looking for somebody who has has experience in those industries. It can simply be so different working in them. Manufacturing is very different than professional services as well.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, that's you telling this, but at the same time, I'm trying to reflect myself. And for me at least personally, I actually do love to switch between industries, and that gives you a lot of new experience. I mean, for me, somehow it works switching between different areas. Well, I mean, but it's challenging. It's tough because you need to provide a professional service, but it's make your life more interesting.
You can have experience in more than one industry, but I think an employer should definitely look for someone who has experience in that type of business for a fractional CTO. If they're looking for a level 1 engineer, somebody just out of college, that's fine. That person can pick it up. But for a fractional CTO, you'll be looking for somebody who has relevant experience in a similar type of business. I would say that a business should also look for a fractional CTO that has experience doing the kind of thing that they're doing currently. If they're implementing a manufacturing ERP, they should look for somebody who's implemented a manufacturing ERP before. It's going to be a big stretch if they have somebody who's never done that. Just because a person knows computer systems doesn't mean they know that.
I understand, true, but actually I want to hear your opinion about following use cases. I mean, Obviously, if the person has an experience, he will do it within, I don't know, within his expertise, within his experience, within his historical activities, maybe slightly adjusting, well, not maybe, I mean, we must continuously improve and must continuously grow. But those are incremental improvements and incremental growth. What I noticed it, I'm not sure if you saw it in your experience, when you put a person who doesn't have much experience in the specific environment, but he has relevant experience in other domains, knowledge domains, he actually proposed very interesting ideas, basically out-of-box ideas. And people, they just kind of, they used to something what they're doing, and they just don't go out of the box very frequently, at least. No, not in your experience.
I think there's something to be said for that. I think there's something to be said for. I think that the limitation that I kind of think you're mentioning can be if you hire somebody who only implements the NetSuite ERP and that's all they ever do, and they do that for they've done that 100 times for 100 different companies, then you may find that they've become set in their ways and they may not be willing to be flexible and
because I mean,
work with
if you
your
bring
company.
to the company which application we want to implement, NetSuite, obviously it's the best application. It's a enterprise level IBM built, so on, so no brainer, right? But because he is in this box, NetSuite, he doesn't see it outside of this box very frequently, at least.
That's right. And a fractional CTO should represent the interest of your company, so not the product that they want to implement, and that is critical for that role.
That's true. Next question. I mean, we actually did touch it during previous talks, but we want to hear Daniel's idea. So growing from, well, again, when we were talking with Daniel before, it's growing from an engineer to become CTO. So first question, Daniel, is it only engineer to CTO, or it's a MBA CTO? I don't know, some other stuff CTO, or you think that engineering is, I don't know, 95, 99% of all cases?
I think engineers are likely to become a CTO. I think an MBA will more likely take the title CIO rather than CTO because of the nature of the business. But I think so it's most likely engineers who are going to become CTOs or somebody who have a background in technology. My recommendations for growing into that role of CTO for engineers is, first it's going to take years for those who are starting out. It's going to take 5 to 10 years before you're going to be able to truly carry that title of CTO, and even 5 years it would be pretty quick for most engineers. I strongly advise people to get the vendor agnostic certifications. Some I might recommend are the PMP from the Project Management International organization. I hold that myself and have for over 10 years. It's something I can't recommend highly enough. It gives a great background on just how to do project implementations in general. I also recommend for those who are security minded the ISC squared, CISSP, and I'm not going to try to read out what all those initials stand for, but it's a high level security certification.
Well, if people want to do it, I guess they will need to somehow deduce those abbreviations. Okay, for everybody else, well, it's just some letters. Okay,
that's right.
Yep. Daniel, actually, I recently was reading an article with the statistic information about overall executive roles in the corporate big companies, including government companies, private companies, and majority of all executives, not just CTO, around, well, depending on the industry, between 60 to 70% of them are former engineers. And I was actually quite surprised by those numbers. And it was only related to the Eastern Europe. Do you know maybe some kind of information in where do we stand in USA, in Europe about statistics related to this info, or you don't? I mean, I frankly didn't look up myself. I probably should have before this interview.
I can't say I know. I can say, having worked in the USA for over 30 years in the technology space, I simply have never known someone who carried the title CTO who didn't come from an engineering background.
Okay.
So based on that, I would say it's a very high percentage.
Okay. And well, I mean, when you talk people, you don't ask question, what's your education, right? You're engineer or MBA?
Well, what I think you know, you kind of know what their background is just by getting to know them. Yeah.
True. That's true. That's also true. You cannot argue about this. Books. What are your favorite books?
I'm glad you asked. I have three books that I've read in my career that I use to manage, and these aren't technical books. These are career development management books. The first is True Alignment by Edgar Papke. An excellent book for anybody working in a consulting capacity. It lays out the different types of organizations and what really makes them tick. This can really help somebody who needs to work one day in a nonprofit and the next day in a law firm and the day after that in a manufacturing firm. It can really help them to understand how those cultures work and how those organizations are likely to be structured and what's really going to matter in terms of success with those organizations. A very good book. I recommend it highly. The second is Radical Candor by Kim Scott. It's a great book for communications. It's how I communicate. It's what I really recommend to everybody, whether they're working in.
Any specific advice from this book?
Yes, the advice is to be very upfront with people about what you need to tell them right off the bat, and not to wait. So too often people don't know how you feel, and too often people will just hold back what they think until it becomes a crisis, and then we'll either have to let that crisis play out, or we'll it'll become an argument, or there'll be hard feelings. If you tell people how you feel about their performance, about how things are working from the very beginning, and you're very clear that your goal is clear communication, it makes it easier for everybody.
So clear communication plus full transparency, right? That helps a lot.
Absolutely. What she calls radical transparency. It's a very good book.
Excellent. Wow.
And the third is a management style that I personally am an expert in, although I'm not an implementer of it. It's called Traction EOS by Gino. The author of the book is Gino Wickman. It's a well traveled management system that outlines how often the executive team should meet, what the executive team should look like, how the executive team should manage goals and to-dos, and how the management team should manage KPIs. It's a very good book. Not everybody uses Traction as a management system, but I bring elements of Traction to every client that I work with.
And how does it work?
I think everybody every client that I've ever worked with, it always feels that it just brings so much clarity and concreteness to the changes that they need, that they're always happy to have those techniques be applied to their business, even if they don't adopt the actual full style of managing that way.
So it just makes some adjustment according to recommendation. Actually, I'm quite surprised, because usually our company and overall teams are very resistant to the changes. I mean, even so they do want to improve, make big changes sometimes very, very hard. doing.
Traction is a system for change. So if you use Traction, then it's guaranteed to make changes to the organization.
Well, I'm not sure if you have this information or not. For how long was it active? Because I mean, sometimes some processes are being implemented in the company, and then after a few months, it's either forgotten, or it's either too difficult, or too annoying, or too many paperwork, or something like this, and it just dies out. What's this system? Was it long-lived, or it was abandoned at some point, at least?
It depends. I mean, it depends on so if a client's not using Traction as their management system, then any changes that where you use these techniques to implement them, of course that doesn't guarantee future changes. But Traction as a management system is an ongoing permanent management system for any company who who implements it will have consistent change and most likely growth for as long as they continue to use Traction.
Okay, good. Now let's move to the challenges. And I mean, what do you think the most, I guess, important challenges, and well, yeah, actually good word, important challenges you face as a CTO?
So the single most important challenge that I face is communicating the value that I bring to the organization, and that is to everybody. What I sometimes say about communicating value is that success is not an option. No matter how well you think you've communicated what you're doing and why it's important to the organization, you still have not communicated it well enough for everybody to know and to understand, and to really present what you're doing in the important light that it needs to be presented in. So communicating value is always my number one.
Okay.
I live by the rule that if I don't tell them, they don't know. So I tell as many people as I can the things that I feel that they need to know to understand what I'm doing for them.
Well, I mean, it's back to the communication, clear communication. Okay.
Clear communication. And then my rule number two is is tell them and tell them and tell them, and that is I don't assume just because I told them once that they know, and I never need to tell them again. I have no problem repeating myself over time, especially to make sure that the message is continuing to resonate.
I feel your pain.
I feel that all CTOs, any good fractional CTO should be able to go into a client and quickly express a real vision for a future state that excites them, that they're happy with. If a CTO is working for a company and just they don't really know where to go, or they're still trying to figure things out, and they're just not really sure how to solve a problem, or what could be a better company, or they just think things are just good enough as they are, then in my mind that's probably not a great CTO in most companies. And I also live by the thing that I learned in college is, if you're not dancing by the third song, you're probably never going to dance. And so I would say with any fractional CTO starting with a company, if you're not giving them some really great advice by your third day, then you're probably never going to be able to do it. So get in and move fast, and try to make a difference quickly.
That's actually I do have additional question about this. That's, I mean, good. When you're comparing with a song and a dance, when you come to the company as a CTO, well, obviously there is some music and there is a dance that everybody, and you need to dance with the company, but obviously you bring some new tunes with you and some new dance moves with you. How hard, from your standpoint, actually, to make sure that everybody start dancing your dance and adjusting to your dance? I mean, there is always resilient, right? I mean, from the team, like, we are smart, we know what to do. there is some CTO who think that he is smart and he making these changes. I mean, we were fine with before him, which is fine. But any challenges in this direction?
Yeah, that's the chemistry element. So each, yeah, that's true, and especially when starting with a company on a fractional basis or any kind of consulting basis, there are so many people, and you have so little time to learn each person's role. So yeah, my advice to every CTO is, listen, like really listen and talk to each person and really try to understand what their role is, because they're not going to just tell. Typically, they're not going to just tell you. You'll have to piece it together based on what they've said and what people have said about them. Um,
Mhm.
and there's a difference between walking in and saying, by the third day you have to change everything, and saying that by the third day you have to have something to say about something. I mean, you have to have some good counsel by that time, um, or else you probably just aren't. I don't know, aren't getting it. Um,
Okay, so you kind of express the first challenge, gathering relevant information, actually relevant information. So people, I mean, make people start sharing information with you, critical information on which, I don't know, you can do some gap analysis or something. But then comes the next stage. I mean, I listen to you, and I think you suck here. Well, I mean, obviously in different words, right? But what it means basically that. And we need to make improvements here, that, and that. And how frequently you get resistance from the team and saying, well, I mean, it's either silent resistance or voiced resistance in different situations, right?
there's always resistance from somebody
Mhm.
about every change.
Yeah.
So the communication element is the real challenge. Um, so the resistance, being aware of the back channel communications and trying to address them as effectively as you can is a really important part of this. That is to say, especially on a fractional basis, if you're there for 1 or 2 days a week, they have 5 days a week to talk about what you're doing. So if you've been gone for 3 days, when you come back, there may be an entirely different sort of narrative surrounding what's happening than it was before you
Yeah.
were there. But again, that's a challenge to overcome. Um,
Hold on. So no, but I'm asking about different. I'm not asking about best solutions that you can provide. I'm talking about, well, here is the best solution to move on, and you have resistance from multiple level of organization to actually implement those improvements. Even so, everybody do understand that yes, it will bring benefits, but we just gonna block it because we don't like you or something like this. What do you do in these cases? This is probably, I mean, the biggest challenge from what I'm understanding for the
so,
fractional CTO.
so
No?
the a fractional CTO should have sponsorship from the highest level executive in the
True.
organization.
Obviously. Mhm.
And my advice in that specific case would be to interact with that person to make to make sure the organization is cooperating with the changes that need to be made. It's going to be a negotiation, because the organization is going to have their reasons for not wanting to make these changes.
Mhm.
Perhaps the changes could be done um, in a less disruptive way, or perhaps in a different way that would meet the same goal, but would be less onerous. Um, you know, listen, but again, I think it's really important that the CTO continue to communicate with the sponsor, which would
Yeah,
typically be
but
the owner or
communicating
the
to the
CEO.
sponsor basically implies that you're using your authority. Authority, well, I mean, obviously it works to some extent, but I mean, you cannot achieve everything just by authority, correct? At least, what is it? Assigned authority. That's actually very bad stuff. No, nothing like this. You don't feel it?
No. Communicate with the entire organization, of course. I mean, I personally, I always work with I always make sure that I have a close relationship with the bookkeeper or the CFO or
Okay.
whoever's working in the financial side of it, because I find that so many people in the organization just have no idea what's happening in that piece of it, but the CEO does, and it can become a big problem if
All right.
if payroll is not getting processed, for example. That's a big problem. Nobody worries about it except for the person who's doing that work. Um, and 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 just to take the time to understand the different relationships in the company can make a big difference. Um, yeah.
Okay, cool. And I mean, well, since we, well, I mean, discussed fractional CTO, how would I find fractional CTO? What would you recommend?
The for a business to find a fractional CTO, the best way is word of mouth. Ask the other businesses like yours if they know anybody.
Okay.
The fractional CTO, the fractional industry in general is still in its infancy compared to um, the IT services provided by companies like MSPs. So
Mhm.
so we can be hard to find, but we're out there. So and word of mouth is the best way to find us. Um, a lot of people find me on LinkedIn. So they just simply do a search for what they're looking for, and they put fractional in it, and my name pops up, and that's how they find me. So
Cool.
um, it's not a bad idea. You might want to give it a try. Um, but there are a number of companies out there that provide this kind of referral service on a typically at no fee. There's a company website called fractionalleadership.io that is a traction oriented
Mhm.
fractional referral company. If you reach out to them, they can provide you with a referral. As far as I know, it's no cost to the client. Um, there's a company called useshiny.com that does a similar thing. Again,
Okay.
excellent organization. Um, there are a number of companies out there that provide sort of kind of an advertising basis. They make no claims that the CTO is good, but people can advertise on it there anyway. There's one I'm aware of called GigX
Okay.
.com that can provide fractional CTOs. Um,
Well,
and
that's a
and
lot of resources. I mean, it doesn't look like, as you said, undeveloped resource management
c-
system. So I think people
c-
can find it if they want
compare
to.
that
Yeah.
to the MSP business in any small city, and there'll be 100 to 200 of them, easily. In the fractional market is still developing, but I think it will become the next big thing. So I'm very excited to be in it. And there are different companies that provide fractional CTO services. There are you can look them up online. I can't you can't necessarily recommend or not recommend any of them. They're out there. They can do it.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. And just out of curiosity, I mean, the engagement with fractional CTO, how does it usually work? I mean, can you give some details to the audience so we
So,
understand?
so I can tell you how it works for me, and that is the way that I do my engagements is I never ask for a contractual commitment. That is to say, Um, if a company doesn't want me, I don't want to be there. So I never say we require a year's worth of service or anything like that. In my mind, someone who is demanding a contractual commitment for a fractional engagement is not very confident in their value, and so I would really question that from anybody who is doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the, So I think most fractional CTOs, me especially, I work with an understanding with the client that um, that I'm available to them 5 days a week or really 7 days a week, whether I'm scheduled to work for them or not. If they need me, I'm their CTO, and I'm going to be there to help them. Um, if it starts to become a problem, they're bothering me all the time, and I'm only contracted with them 1 day a week, then I guess I would talk to them about it. but I'm very unlikely to to complain to them or send them a bill or not help them. In my mind, that doesn't really meet the standard of what a fractional CTO should be striving for. And the engagement should be set up so that the company knows who they're getting, and they know that that person is not going to change one day. So, in other words, if a company does go through some sort of other company to get one of their fractional CTOs, if the person you interview is different than the person that they offer to send in, to me that would be a concern. Or if the person that they send in is there for a month and then they say, now we'd like you to have another person, to me that would be a big concern. Regardless of the size of the company, when you hire a person, it should be that person who's helping you, and that person shouldn't just change to somebody else one day without any real conversation surrounding it.
Gotcha. Okay. And since we were talking about engaging with the clients, what's your favorite client?
More than anything else, I like a client with a good story. So if I'm interviewing a client and the story that they have for bringing me in just sounds great, I really, it's something I really want to be part of. Then that is a client that I want. So a client who were to say, for example, our old CTO left suddenly and we just need someone to come in and work here for a few months while we find a new one, and we have 3 engineers to manage and we don't really want you to do much. I mean,
not a good story, right?
to me, that's not a great story. A client who says, I've been running this business for 40 or 50 years, and now I want to turn it over to my son, but I'm not sure our technologies is that great. It was good enough for me, but I'm not sure he's going to be happy with it. And we need someone to come in for 2 or 3 years to really help us modernize this place and kind of help us change the culture to become a more tech savvy organization. To me, that's a great story and one I really want to be part of. Or a company that says, we're pretty well funded, but we only have 15 people here. We plan on growing this thing to 300 people sometime in the next 3 or 4 years, and we just need someone who can be the guy who can manage the technology needs of a company for 15 people and 30 people and 100 people and 150 people and 300 people. And we don't know where we're going to find someone like that because we're growing so fast. To me, that's a great story and one I want to be part of.
Okay. Well, that actually sounds very interesting. Well, and good thing that you can actually select the client. So that's actually a very rare, I would say, very rare case in some industries. So, Daniel, it was very nice talking to you. I mean, very interesting story, very interesting topic, fractional CTOs. I think we learned a lot what it actually means, what the benefits, how it can be found, and which clients do they select those fractional CTOs and which clients they don't. Again, thank you very much, and we'll see you sometimes later. Okay, Dan?
Thank you, Dimitri.
Bye. Bye.